I never imagined that rebuilding my late brother's failing construction business would lead me to discover the two people I trusted most were plotting my death. 3 months ago, I thought I was being the good brother, stepping in to save David's legacy. Turns out, I was walking straight into an elaborate trap set by my own wife and business partner. My name is Robert Chen, and at 63, I thought I'd seen enough of life to spot betrayal from a mile away. I was wrong. It started last October when my younger brother David passed away suddenly from a heart attack at 58. He'd built Chen and Associates Construction from nothing, growing it into a respectable mid-sized firm here in Vancouver. The company was worth roughly $42 million on paper, but David had made some poor investments in the years before his death. His widow, Janet, asked if I could step in temporarily as CEO while she figured out what to do with the business. I'd spent 30 years as a structural engineer before retiring, so I knew the industry inside and out. My wife Caroline seemed supportive of the idea. We'd been married for 36 years, raised 2 daughters, and I thought we had the kind of partnership that could weather anything. She even suggested bringing in my old university friend, Thomas Garrett, to help with the financial restructuring. Thomas had become a successful investment consultant, and Caroline had always gotten along well with him at social gatherings. That should have been my first warning sign. Caroline never liked my friends. I officially took over Chen and Associates on November 1st. The company had 215 employees, multiple ongoing projects across British Columbia, and enough debt to keep me awake at night. Thomas came aboard as CFO 2 weeks later, claiming he wanted to help for David's memory. He took a significant pay cut from his consulting work, which I found noble at the time. Looking back now, I realize how carefully they'd orchestrated everything. The first month passed in a blur of meetings, financial audits, and long hours at the office in downtown Vancouver. I was so focused on saving jobs and completing projects that I barely noticed how often Caroline and Thomas had chance encounters at our home. She'd mentioned bumping into him at the grocery store, or he'd drop by with documents that couldn't wait until morning. It was my daughter Jessica who first sensed something was off. She's 32, works as a criminal defense attorney here in Vancouver, and has always had sharp instincts about people. During a family dinner in early December, she pulled me aside. "Dad, don't you think it's weird how much time Mom and Thomas spend together?" she asked. I dismissed it. Caroline volunteered on 3 different charity boards. She was always meeting people. And Thomas lived just 15 minutes away in Kitsilano. The proximity made sense. "Your mother's just being helpful," I told Jessica. "Thomas is doing us a huge favor with this company turnaround." Jessica didn't look convinced, but she dropped it. 2 weeks before Christmas, I had to fly to Calgary for an emergency meeting with a major client threatening to pull out of a $12 million hospital project. I'd be gone for 3 days. Caroline kissed me goodbye at Vancouver International Airport, reminding me to take my blood pressure medication. I'd been on those pills for 5 years, ever since a scare with hypertension. Caroline always prepared my weekly pill organizer, sorting out the various medications I took each day. She was meticulous about my health, or so I believed. The Calgary trip went well. I managed to save the contract, and even negotiated better terms. I decided to fly home a day early to surprise Caroline with the good news. I landed at YVR around 2 in the afternoon on December 20th, and took a cab straight home to our house in Shaughnessy. The house was quiet when I walked in. Caroline's car was in the driveway, along with a silver BMW I recognized as Thomas's vehicle. I figured they were working on year-end financial reports in my home office. I'd asked Thomas to help Caroline understand the estate planning documents related to the company. I headed upstairs to change out of my suit, and that's when I heard it. Laughter, coming from our bedroom. My bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might have another hypertension episode right there. Through the gap, I could see my wife of 36 years in bed with Thomas. But what I heard next turned my blood cold. 3 more months, Caroline was saying. The doctor said his heart is already showing strain from the stress of running the company. When the final dose kicks in, it'll look like a massive coronary. Natural causes. No one will question it. Thomas laughed. "And you're sure about the dosage?" "I've been replacing his blood pressure medication for 6 weeks now," Caroline said. I could hear the smile in her voice. "The pharmacist thinks I'm picking up his regular prescription, but I've been getting digoxin instead. Small doses, building up in his system. Combined with the stress he's under, his heart won't stand a chance. The autopsy will show digitalis toxicity, but they'll assume it was a prescribing error or that he accidentally double-dosed. Brilliant, Thomas said. And once he's gone, Jessica won't contest the will. She's too busy with her law career to care about the construction business. Robert's older daughter, Emily, lives in Toronto with her family. She hasn't shown any interest in the company either. The business passes to me as his spouse, and we execute the sale to West Coast Development that we've already negotiated privately. $42 million, minus the debt, leaves us with about $28 million to split. After we get married, you mean, Thomas added. Caroline laughed. Of course. We'll wait a respectable year, then make it official. No one will suspect a thing. I stood frozen in that hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 seconds. My mind raced through every interaction, every pill I'd swallowed, every moment I'd trusted these two people with my life. Literally, I backed away silently, went downstairs, and left through the front door as quietly as I'd entered. I sat in my car at the end of the street, hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just learned. My wife was poisoning me. My friend was helping her. And I had approximately 3 months to live if I didn't do something. The rational part of my brain kicked in. I couldn't confront them directly. If Caroline knew I was aware of the plan, she might accelerate the timeline or find another method. I needed proof. I needed to protect myself. And I needed to make sure they faced justice for what they'd done. I drove to a walk-in clinic across town, far from our usual doctors. I explained to a physician I'd never met before that I was concerned about my medications and wanted a full blood panel. The doctor, a kind woman in her 40s, named Dr. Sarah Kim, took me seriously when I described my symptoms over the past few weeks. Irregular heartbeat, occasional nausea, strange visual disturbances. Those are classic signs of digitalis toxicity, she said, frowning. Are you taking digoxin for any reason? No, I said. At least, I'm not supposed to be. She ordered immediate blood work. 3 hours later, she called me back to the clinic with results that confirmed my worst fears. I had dangerous levels of digoxin in my system. Mr. Chen, this is serious. Dr. Kim said, you need to stop taking whatever medication is causing this immediately. I'm going to prescribe activated charcoal and arrange for cardiac monitoring. If these levels had continued to rise for a few more weeks, you could have had a fatal arrhythmia. She wanted to call the police. I asked her to wait. I need to handle this carefully, I told her. There are legal and business complications. Give me 2 weeks to gather evidence, then I promise you can report everything you found. Dr. Kim reluctantly agreed, but only because I convinced her I'd be under my daughter Jessica's supervision, and I'd get daily cardiac monitoring through a private service. I called Jessica from the clinic parking lot. My voice must have sounded strange because she immediately knew something was catastrophically wrong. Dad, what happened in Calgary? Nothing happened in Calgary, I said. Everything happened here. I need you to meet me somewhere private. Don't tell your mother. Don't tell anyone. This is life or death, Jess. We met at a Tim Hortons near her law office downtown. I told her everything I'd overheard, everything the doctor had found. Jessica's face went from shock to rage to cold calculation. My attorney daughter was brilliant under pressure. We need evidence beyond your testimony about what you heard, she said immediately. Security cameras, recordings, documentation of the medication switch. And we need to be smart about this, because if they realize, Mom might panic and do something desperate. Or Thomas might, I added. Jessica pulled out her laptop right there in the coffee shop and started making notes. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to pretend everything is normal. You came home late from Calgary. They never knew you saw them. Second, we install hidden cameras in the house. I know a private investigator who specializes in this kind of domestic surveillance. Third, you're going to secretly switch out your pill organizer. Take the fake pills to a lab for analysis while taking the real medication Dr. Kim prescribes. Fourth, we document everything they do, everyone they meet, every conversation we can record. Is that legal? I asked. Jessica gave me a grim smile. In Canada, you can record conversations you're part of or that occur in your own home. We're good. And Dad, we're going to bury them. The next day, December 21st, I returned home acting as if I'd just arrived from Calgary on schedule. Caroline greeted me warmly, asking about the client meeting. Thomas happened to call right then about some urgent financial documents, and Caroline invited him over for dinner to discuss them. I smiled through the entire meal, watching them exchange subtle glances, knowing what they'd been planning. When Caroline handed me my evening pills with a glass of water, I palmed them while pretending to swallow, then disposed of them later. Jessica's PI friend, a former RCMP officer named Marcus Wong, installed 6 hidden cameras throughout our house over the next 3 days. We placed them in the living room, kitchen, my home office, the master bedroom, and the garage. Each one included audio recording. The footage we captured over the next 2 months was damning. On January 8th, the cameras recorded Caroline and Thomas in my home office, going through the company's insurance policies. They discussed how the $20 million key person life insurance policy on me would pay out to the company, which Caroline would inherit as my spouse. They planned to use part of that payout to cover the company's debts before selling it, maximizing their profit. On January 23rd, we caught Thomas meeting with executives from West Coast Development in a coffee shop downtown. The PI had followed him there with a long-range microphone. Thomas was negotiating the sale price of Chen and Associates, promising them they could acquire the company for $35 million instead of its $42 million valuation, and he'd get a $5 million finder's fee once the deal closed. On February 2nd, Caroline visited a jewelry store in Gastown. The cameras at the store, which the PI obtained through the owner, who was sympathetic to our investigation, showed her picking out wedding rings for her and Thomas. She told the jeweler she was planning a wedding for next December, almost a year to the day after my planned death. But the most damaging evidence came on February 14th, Valentine's Day. I'd told Caroline I had to work late at the office. Instead, Jessica and I sat in her apartment, watching the live feed from our home cameras. Caroline invited Thomas over for what she called a celebration dinner. After several glasses of wine, they became careless. The bedroom camera captured everything. "I almost feel bad about it sometimes," Caroline said, lying in bed. "Robert's been a decent husband. Boring, but decent. He was always too cautious," Thomas replied. "That's why David was the successful brother. David took risks. Robert just follows rules." "Well, his rule-following is about to pay off for us," Caroline laughed. "Another month, maybe 6 weeks at most. His heart is definitely weakening. I saw him get winded going up the stairs yesterday. The digoxin is doing its job." To Robert's failing heart, Thomas raised his wine glass. "And to our future," Caroline clinked her glass against his. I felt Jessica's hand squeeze mine as we watched. My daughter had tears running down her face, but her jaw was set with determination. "We have enough," she said quietly. "More than enough. Dad, it's time to end this. But I wanted one more thing. I wanted them to confess in front of witnesses. I wanted everyone who'd ever known us to see exactly who Caroline and Thomas really were, and I had the perfect opportunity coming up. Chen and Associates was hosting a major company gala on March 2nd to celebrate completing the hospital project in Calgary and announce our financial recovery. I'd invited all our employees, major clients, business partners, and several local politicians who'd supported our work. The event was being held at the Fairmont Hotel Vancouver, with over 300 people expected to attend. Caroline had helped plan the event. She thought it would be my last major public appearance before my heart attack. She'd even suggested I give a speech thanking everyone who'd supported the company through difficult times, including my loving wife and trusted friend Thomas. Jessica and I spent the week before the gala coordinating with the Vancouver Police Department. We'd turned over all our evidence to a detective named Sandra Chen, no relation, who specialized in attempted murder cases. Detective Chen was furious when she saw the footage and lab analysis of the fake medications. "This is one of the most calculated murder plots I've seen in 20 years, she told us. "They're going to prison for a very long time." We planned the arrest carefully. The police would be at the gala, waiting for my signal. I would give my speech as planned, but with some additions Caroline and Thomas weren't expecting. March 2nd arrived. I got dressed in my best suit, a Navy Hugo Boss that Caroline had bought me for Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd given me an expensive suit to wear to events she thought I'd never attend. The ballroom at the Fairmont was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, round tables with white linens, a stage with a podium and large video screen. Caroline looked stunning in a red dress, playing the supportive wife perfectly. Thomas arrived in a tailored tuxedo, shaking hands with clients and employees like he was already the owner. Dinner was served at 7. At 8, I was introduced to give my remarks. I walked up to the stage. looking out at 300 faces, seeing colleagues I'd worked with for decades, employees whose livelihoods I'd fought to save, clients who'd trusted me with their projects. And I saw Caroline and Thomas at the front table, smiling up at me like they hadn't spent the last 3 months trying to murder me. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began. 3 months ago, when I took over this company from my late brother David, I wasn't sure we'd make it. The debt was substantial, the challenges were enormous, but we persevered, and we succeeded, because of the incredible people in this room. Applause. Caroline beamed. "I've learned a lot in these 3 months," I continued, "about business, about loyalty, and about trust. I've learned that the people you think you know best can sometimes be complete strangers. I've learned that betrayal doesn't always come from your competitors. Sometimes it comes from your own home." The room went quiet. Caroline's smile faltered slightly. "I want to share something with all of you tonight," I said. "Something I discovered quite by accident in December." I nodded to the AV technician. The large screen behind me lit up. The footage began to play. Caroline and Thomas in bed, discussing my murder, their voices crystal clear through the ballroom speakers. 3 more months. The doctor said his heart is already showing strain from the stress. The room erupted. People gasped, shouted, jumped from their seats. Caroline's face went white. Thomas stood up, looking around wildly for an exit. "That's not all," I said calmly into the microphone. The video switched to the footage of them in my office, discussing the insurance policies. Then the jewelry store. Then the Valentine's Day celebration. Caroline was screaming now, something about privacy and illegal recordings. Thomas was trying to push through the crowd toward the doors. That's when Detective Chen and 4 uniformed officers entered the ballroom. Caroline Chen and Thomas Garrett. Detective Chen announced loudly, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." They read them their rights while everyone watched. 300 witnesses to their arrest. Caroline was crying, reaching for me, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. Thomas went quietly, his face blank with shock. I stood on that stage, watching them being led away in handcuffs, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. Jessica came up to the stage and hugged me while the police escorted Caroline and Thomas out. The room was chaos, people talking over each other, reporters who'd been covering the company's recovery suddenly having a much bigger story. I took the microphone one more time. "I want to thank my daughter Jessica," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Without her help, I wouldn't be standing here tonight. I also want to thank Dr. Sarah Kim, Marcus Wong, and Detective Sandra Chen for their professionalism and dedication to justice. And I want to say something to everyone here who works for Chen and Associates." The room quieted again. "This company will continue," I said firmly. "We will not let the actions of 2 criminals destroy what my brother built and what we've all worked so hard to save. Tomorrow morning, we'll meet with the management team to discuss our path forward. Tonight, I ask that you go home, hug your families, and remember that integrity matters more than any amount of money." The applause that followed was different from before. It was supportive, sympathetic, almost protective. The trial took place over the summer. Jessica connected me with one of the best criminal attorneys in British Columbia. Not that I needed much representation, I was the victim, not the defendant. But I wanted to make sure I understood every step of the process. Caroline's defense team tried to argue that the recordings were inadmissible, but the judge disagreed. In Canada, recording conversations in your own home is legal, especially when investigating a crime. They tried to claim emotional distress, that Caroline had been manipulated by Thomas. The prosecution destroyed that argument with the footage of her researching digoxin dosages and discussing the insurance policies in detail. Thomas's lawyers attempted to negotiate a plea deal. The Crown refused. They wanted both defendants to face the full weight of the law. In August, the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts for both of them. Caroline was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Thomas got 22 years because of his additional fraud charges related to the West Coast development deal. The judge was particularly harsh in her sentencing remarks. "You didn't just attempt to murder your husband and friend," the judge said, looking directly at Caroline. "You violated every principle of trust that marriages and friendships are built upon. You turned love into a weapon and patience into poison. The court shows you the same mercy you showed Mr. Chen. None. I sat in that courtroom with Jessica on one side and my other daughter Emily, who'd flown in from Toronto, on the other. I watched two people I'd once cared about being led away to begin their prison sentences. I didn't feel satisfaction. Exactly. Mostly I felt tired and relieved. In the months since, I've worked with the board to restructure Chen and Associates. We brought in a new CFO, a woman named Patricia Liu, who came highly recommended and underwent extremely thorough background checks. The company is thriving. We've hired 50 new employees and taken on projects across Western Canada. Jessica convinced me to start therapy to process everything that happened. My therapist, Dr. Raymond Park, has helped me understand that betrayal on this scale isn't something you just get over. It changes how you see the world, but it doesn't have to destroy you. I've learned to be more cautious with trust, but not so cautious that I close myself off completely. I've learned that family isn't always blood. Jessica proved that by risking everything to save me, while Caroline threw away 36 years of marriage for money. I've learned that integrity might not make you rich, but it lets you sleep at night. I'm 64 now. I survived a murder plot that should have killed me. I rebuilt a company that should have failed. And I learned the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes the people you trust most are exactly the people you shouldn't trust at all. But here's what I want younger people to understand. People who might be facing their own betrayals or challenges. Dignity isn't about avoiding difficult situations. It's about how you handle yourself when everything falls apart. It's about choosing justice over revenge, evidence over emotion, and principle over profit. When you discover betrayal, your first instinct will be to react immediately. Don't. Take time to think, to plan, to protect yourself legally and emotionally. Surround yourself with people who have your genuine best interests at heart. Document everything. Trust the legal system, even when it's slow and frustrating. And remember this: the people who betray you are counting on your silence, your shame, your desire to avoid conflict. The moment you decide to stand up for yourself, to demand justice, to refuse to be a victim, that's the moment you take back your power. Caroline and Thomas thought I was weak because I followed rules. They thought my caution made me an easy target. They underestimated the strength it takes to do the right thing when the wrong thing would be so much easier. I could have confronted them that December afternoon. I could have exploded in rage, maybe even violence. But then they would have just been caught, not exposed. They would have gone to prison, but without everyone knowing exactly what kind of people they were. They could have claimed it was all a misunderstanding, a momentary lapse in judgment. Instead, I let them continue their plot while gathering irrefutable evidence. I let them celebrate their scheme while I built the case that would convict them. I gave them enough rope, as the saying goes, and they hanged themselves with it. That's not weakness, that's strategy. I'm also grateful to Dr. Kim for taking my concerns seriously, to Marcus Wong for his meticulous surveillance work, to Detective Chen for her dedication to justice, and especially to Jessica for reminding me that I wasn't alone in this fight. If you're going through something similar, whether it's betrayal in business, in marriage, or in friendship, know that you don't have to face it alone. Seek out professionals. Trust the people who've proven themselves trustworthy. Don't let shame or embarrassment keep you from getting help. And never, ever let the people who betrayed you win by destroying your faith in humanity. Yes, Caroline and Thomas were criminals, but Jessica, Dr. Kim, Marcus, and Detective Chen were heroes. The world has both kinds of people. Your job is to recognize which is which. These days, I'm dating again. Nothing serious yet, just coffee dates with a widow I met at a community center event. Her name is Margaret. She's 61, and she makes me laugh. We're taking things very slowly, which suits me fine. Jessica approves, which matters to me more than I expected it would. Chen and Associates continues to grow. We've been nominated for several industry awards for our work on the Calgary Hospital project. The company my brother built is now stronger than ever, employing over 280 people and taking on increasingly ambitious projects. Sometimes I think about what David would have made of all this. He always joked that I was too careful, too by the book. But it was that careful, by-the-book approach that saved my life and preserved his legacy. I hope wherever he is, he's proud of what I've accomplished. The most important lesson I've learned through all of this is simple. Trust is a privilege, not a right. People have to earn it through consistent, honest behavior. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Caroline showed me she was a murderer. Thomas showed me he was a co-conspirator. They revealed their true nature, and I believed what I saw. I didn't make excuses for them. I didn't minimize what they'd done. I didn't tell myself I must have been mistaken, or that things weren't as bad as they seemed. I believed the evidence, and that belief saved my life. To anyone reading this who's struggling with betrayal, who's questioning whether they should trust their instincts about someone close to them, I want you to hear this clearly. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, investigate. If someone's behavior doesn't match their words, pay attention to the behavior. If you feel like you're in danger, take that feeling seriously. You don't owe loyalty to people who are plotting against you. You don't owe silence to people who are harming you. You don't owe second chances to people who tried to destroy you. What you owe yourself is protection, justice, and the chance to build a better life without people who wish you harm. I'm living proof that it's possible to survive betrayal, to find justice, and to rebuild. It's not easy. There are days when I still feel angry about the 36 years I wasted with someone who turned out to be capable of murder. There are nights when I wonder how I missed the signs, what I could have done differently. But mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful I discovered the truth in time. Grateful for Jessica's love and support. Grateful for a legal system that worked. Grateful for a second chance at life that Caroline tried to steal from me. If my story helps even one person recognize betrayal and take action to protect themselves, then sharing all of this publicly will have been worth it. That's why I agreed to tell this story. Why I'm putting my name and face to it. Why I'm not hiding in shame or embarrassment. Because the shame belongs to Caroline and Thomas, not to me. The embarrassment should be theirs, not mine. I'm a survivor, not a victim. And I'm determined that my brother's company and my own second chance at life will stand as proof that integrity and justice still matter in this world. Remember, dignity sometimes begins the moment you stop excusing the unforgivable. Don't excuse it. Don't minimize it. Don't pretend it didn't happen or wasn't that bad. Face it head on. Gather your evidence. Surround yourself with good people and fight for justice. That's how you reclaim your life from people who tried to take it from you. That's how you win.